Hi, welcome to TSN In Depth. I'm Rick Westhead. I'm joined by Dave Naylor and Bardia Ghahremani. Bardia is an agent who represents players in the CFL and NFL. And Bardia, maybe you could just walk us through who some of your clients are and how busy it is for you right now.
Sure. Thanks for having me. In the CFL, I represent players like Solomon Elimimian, uh, John Jennings, Forrest Hightower. In the NFL, we represent clients like Giovani Bernard, Nathan Shepard, Jamie Gillen, Marcus Epps.
So the entire sports world, like every industry, is in limbo right now. How has that changed the way that your players are trying to prepare for things like the NFL draft?
So Raymond Calais, our running back out of Lafayette, was very fortunate. He went to the combine, ran really well at the combine. I think he was like the second or third fastest running back at the combine this year. He checked the boxes. You know, the NFL likes to check boxes. And what I mean when I'm saying that is, what is the kid's 40 time? What is his measurables? Well, you know, and then match that up with the game film to say, okay, yeah, he's valued at this projection. Unfortunately, half of our guys didn't have pro days or go to the combine. Pro days are when the NFL teams come to the school and run and test the players exactly like they do at the combine, except it's done at the school. Unfortunately for us, only two of our guys got to do pro day. There were our two Wyoming players because literally right after Wyoming that same week, they shut it down and all NFL teams came off the road.
So how do you get your clients' video in front of NFL teams?
We actually initially we were one of the first ones to take the jump on it and say, hey guys, I need you to film your own pro day. You put the camera high up in the end zone, you know, or high up in the bleachers to where now you're looking down on the field and the NFL teams could actually take a stopwatch and try to, you know, time your 40, time your short shuttle, do all the measurables of the vertical and the broad jump, and then do some drills, position drills afterwards. If you're a receiver, run routes, catch balls. We try to kind of gather all the film so that now we put a little package together and sent it off to all the teams. But our guys had to literally go and become cameramen or hire their buddies or put their iPhones out and start filming.
What kind of questions or feedback are you getting from teams about the integrity of that video?
It's funny you say that. We did a film on one of our tight ends. He's coming out of Utah. Kid's a big kid. He's 6'7", 270 pounds. His name is Hunter Thedford. And I sent it off to teams, that film off to teams that's 40 and running around catching. And one of the teams is like, well, how do I know you didn't speed up the film? And I said, then you must just not know me well enough or you just don't trust me. But I'm not going to put a film in front of a scout that's been sped up. So they're always going to have that kind of like asterisk next to it. Okay, so the kid ran low 4.6s. Did he really run that? Well, yeah, he did. But unfortunately, like you said, they're going to question it almost every time.
How much of this is a disadvantage for players that are playing Division II or lower, where guys were not on the radar? We know that if you were at the combine and you were projected to be a first or second rounder, even if teams don't get as much up close time with you, they still have a pretty good idea what you're about. How does this affect those other kind of players?
It really affects the lower level guys. Not lower level in playing ability, it's just lower level schools because you're coming out now. And the NFL's first thing they're going to go to is the verified numbers. Whether it's good or bad in the NFL combine, they're going to go with the verified numbers. So guys who ran poorly at the combine, they're actually going to hurt themselves or be in a worse situation than a kid who ran at pro day and did well. And unfortunately, you're going to see a lot of NFL rookie free agents not make teams this year. And you're going to see a lot of veteran players make squads because the comfort level of what they're able to do will be in the coach's mind.
What kind of questions are your players? And let's go, we'll talk about both leagues here, but let's start with what are you hearing from your NFL guys? What are they asking you these days?
My NFL guys are all curious as to seeing, hey, are we going to have any offseason program? Their biggest fear is, okay, am I going to be ready? For example, Nathan Shepard, he's in the process of literally building himself a gym in his garage, like Olympic, board where he can do Olympic weights, and he's putting up drywall inside the garage to where he can do his mirrors and weights. And he's literally going, hey, I'm going to build myself a hammer strength gym set because that's my only alternative that I have. A couple of my other guys are doing the same thing. But unfortunately, guys who don't have the financial ability are trying to figure it out how to stay, in shape, how to stay lifting, working out.
Our CFL players, they have a particular concern. I know a lot of the players you represent are Americans and they return to the United States. What kind of questions do they have specific about just even getting into Canada if there is a season?
So talking to Solly a couple days ago, him and I were talking about that same very thing. Once they open up the borders, now can they expedite the players coming through? They can, because they expedite the work visas, they expedite a lot of different things. Potentially they can do it. But the reality of it is, when are they going to open it up? The players' biggest thing right now is they don't know what's going to happen up in Canada, and they all just want to know, are we playing or are we not?
How closely, Bardia, have you looked at player contracts? If there's no season and you have a player with a guaranteed contract, do they get paid?
In the CFL, I would say no. I think the CFL won't pay players. I think if a player already got a signing bonus, they're going to go. I think like in the NFL or in the NBA, they were trying to put the force majeure clause, which is act of God. Hey, this is an act of God. We didn't anticipate it. We're not canceling it. We just can't come in because it's something beyond our control. So I don't see the CFL paying even guaranteed contracts. I don't see them giving players money. I just don't see it. But I could be wrong. But if they're not bringing money in, then that could be a really, unbalanced sheet at the end of the year.
In the NFL, theoretically, you would have the ability to, isolate players in a hotel,
Right.
feed them every day, transport them to the facility, the practice facility, and the stadium on game days. You only travel 8 road trips a year. The CFL simply doesn't have, the infrastructure or the finance to consider something like that. How willing do you think the guys that you represent in the National Football League would be to go through something like that to play a season where they might not see friends and families and they'd be playing games without fans?
When you're talking about $600,000 minimum salaries, pretty much, they'll make it happen, because you're talking about livelihoods. You're talking about, car payments, mortgage payments, child support. I mean, you're opening up a bigger wallet with the NFL. The NFL has the ability to, like you said, do that, because hopefully they can test them, make sure everybody's safe, and hopefully by October, maybe November, it kind of lifts up, and then back end of the season is like back to normal and people can interact and go as they want.
Let me ask you this: the NFL has been very forthright about that they're going to play and they're going to open on time. There has been sort of no, and right from the opening of free agency to the draft, and really no even acknowledgement that this may be beyond their control. Why do you think their messaging is coming across so strongly that way?
Money. I mean, think about it. The NFL draft is going to be the first sports-oriented live TV we're going to have here in the next, 20 days or 16 days. The ratings of that thing are going to be amazing. I joke around with everybody. I said they're probably going to put a halftime show in between rounds or something, because it's going to be so watched. And rightfully so, everybody's kind of itching for something. I think also the NFL kind of realizes that they're so far away from the beginning of their season, and maybe they delay training camp a few weeks. If it gets to that point, they're okay with it. I think also they realize there's bigger obligations with TV contracts and, bigger dollars that are coming in with sponsorships. They're not as gate driven as the Canadian Football League is. CFL is primarily gate driven. So for them, if they don't pack those stadiums, they're losing money. The NFL, they can withstand not packing stadiums or filling stadiums for a few weeks and still be breaking even or making money off of it.
I've heard with some players in the CFL that they'll take jobs in other fields in the off season. Are any of your guys doing that? And might that give them a little bit of a hedge if they're not able to play football this year?
A lot of guys will take little odd jobs in the, to bridge the gap between the season start and season end. I've had players in the past like Brandon Smith, who played for the Calgary Stampeders, who's actually a CPA now. And in the off seasons, he would go become an accountant, do his hours, and then go back to playing. Believe it or not, he actually does the accounting for most of our players now that are, in the NFL and CFL, because he's just done a great job with it. Most part, our guys don't necessarily go get jobs like that. They'll do odd end jobs like, hey, I'm going to help my uncle with this or that, but nobody's going and starting a second career while they're in the off season. I think that might change this year. If the CFL doesn't go, you're going to see a lot of players kind of like hang up the boots and say, okay, well, I need to start my second career because maybe I'm older, maybe it wasn't working out.
Now, that's a question that's kind of been speculated upon, that if the CFL plays a 10-game season, which is prorated on salaries per game, and there may be some rollbacks on top of that because of the economics of the stands not being full. How many players do you think, and I'm sort of asking for a percentage here, would say, you know what, that's not worth it for me, to go play for a 10-game salary rolled back season?
I think you'll see about a good 20 to 30% of the players be like, I'm good, I'm done. It's time to move on for some guys, and some guys it's a new opportunity, because if I have a rookie that's never played and CFL says, hey, we're going to pay you $15,000 to play 8 games for us, hypothetical, of course, not saying, but we're going to pay you X amount of dollars, I would tell them to take it, because it's getting back out on the field. It's getting back to football. You're putting film down, new film down, current film down. So you'll see a flush of the older guys, and you'll see an influx of young talent coming to the CFL to make the league keep going.
Just wondering about medicals. You talked a little bit about earlier about how guys are becoming their own video producers now and doing their 40s in the high school football fields. Medicals obviously are such an important component when it comes to teams deciding who to draft and who to sign. Right. So without having the ability to bring a player in for a pre-draft medical, how does that put a team and a player in limbo, and how are teams trying to get around that?
It's funny you mentioned that. I was having the same discussion with, I don't know if you know Tom Pelissero, but Tom and I were talking about it, and teams are going to shy away from injuries. If a player had major knee injury, knee scopes, major, something was reconstructed at the end of the season, those guys that might have passed a physical and been, oh, okay, you're okay to get, late round pick or priority free agent signing, those guys are going to kind of go on the medical board, where it's like, okay, we're not going to take that chance to draft a player that had a major medical history. But if guys didn't have major medical, then I think they're still draft eligible.
It's occurred to me that of all the sports that may be the toughest to restart, college football may be it, because you've got 100 players per team. You don't control their whereabouts. They're in class. They're off campus. They're with families, their friends. And fans tend to travel in massive packs across the country into stadiums of 800 or of 80 to 100,000 in some cases.
Right.
If there is no college football season next fall, what kind of chaos would that throw at the NFL?
You lost your farm league. So all of a sudden you're not going to have players that are, one-year wonders that do well as juniors or seniors and become high-round draft picks. I think the NFL will have a huge hurdle to get over, because now it's like, do you just judge the year before film? What about a sophomore who did well as a sophomore, but you don't think he did well enough and he declares as a junior? There's so many, cases that could come about it. And I honestly think if the NCAA, and this is just my opinion again with the NCAA, if they are smart with how they approach it, they would do the similar approach you discussed with the NFL, saying, okay, kids, you all 100 come in and you're all staying at this hotel. You guys are getting tutored by the school online or at the hotel or something, and you're mitigating your exposure and you're playing the other teams, and everybody's getting tested, because again, their TV dollars are so big that they can withstand doing that and be able to not sell out the stadiums and be good. So there's a way, there's a will, there's a way. There's no salaries, right? And they can put them all in school, put them all in a area where they're contained and mitigate the exposure of it.
Yeah, well, listen, I think we'll leave it here for now. Bardia, thank you very much for joining us and offering us a little bit more insight into the business of pro football.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.